Okay, so I think I've gotten this little uvula to a standard that I quite like. Um, I'll just sit here and watch it for a little bit as I talk about it. So basically, the actual entity itself, the brush itself it's straight on. It's straight on. So before I thought perhaps I would have to like have it rotated a little bit like that, and then it would swing over and then back to that point. I was wrong. This entity, basically you set it to a middle point and then it goes right, left, right, left, right, left, and this is sort of the apex of it. So I've set it to an incredibly slow speed, 3. Just for reference, the default is 100, and the distance to 10 degrees, the default is 90. So that would be like it'd be like a door almost, and it swings at quite an intense speed. Wow. Oh, I've just turned my lamp off, and now I'm looking at the screen in pitch dark surrounding me. It's quite immersive. But then there's also, it's probably quite subtle here, but the texture for the uvula is actually different to the texture for all the other surfaces. Obviously, in the very intense, deep red lighting, it's a little bit hard to tell, but you can from here tell that there's a noticeable difference in the tone of the uvula to the ceiling, even the walls surrounding it. And if we go into the editor here, you can that maybe it's more difficult to notice, but there you go. You can tell quite clearly. This one is just a flesh wet 1, flesh wet. The difference was that this was the original flesh wet 1, but then with this one, I think I mentioned in my folio a couple pages back actually that I wanted it to be sort of more visceral, and so I increased the sharpness and a little bit of the contrast as well. So obviously it still had its use, and I mentioned before as well actually that I wanted to use different textures for different parts, and I have done that here. So this might look quite different from the last time. I'm not sure specifically what order I will be putting these into the folio, but we can see here that these are quite different. This is an entirely different texture. Here it's quite obvious. This is flesh, flesh wet, and flesh wet 1. My naming conventions are on point, aren't they? But there we have it. I'm thinking from here, if this is meant to be sort of like a throat situation, there should be. I mentioned at some point maybe in my folio, maybe I just was talking about it to some friends that I want like a giant pit at some point. I feel like that would be awesome. So I think what I'm going to do here is right below this, I'm going to have a giant pit, and then, but also like it'll go up and down. And if you go up, it'll take you to the destination, because I am coming to the pointy end of the stick when it comes to time. So I need to quickly finish off this little response. Up here I'm going to have a pathway to that same place, and up there I will as well. As for this route, there is nothing down here, and I will probably have to close it off to keep in with my sort of no dead ends thing. So obviously this might be a little bit underwhelming just because there aren't many paths to actually go down in the first place, but I think as a response this will still do the job of conveying what it is that I want to convey. You've got the sound, you've got the moving parts, the different symbolism of the blood, and of course all of the paths do still lead to the one destination. That destination will be, I think I mentioned in my folio, I have a lot of ideas and it's difficult for me to write them all down, but this destination could be a sort of like a cafeteria of sorts, to symbolize sort of where the blood gets its nutrients to carry to the other organs of the body. And I also need to think of actual organs themselves. I mean, this place is quite purposeless, so maybe I need to think about sort of an organ that I can put in here, perhaps over here to the right, something that is consuming all of this blood. And then on the floor, a drain which is taking the blood out. This is the fresh blood coming in, fresh blood, and while something's being punched. I don't want it to be a heart, although it could be a heart, because the actual main area is meant to be mined. Well, I'll do a little bit more work and I'll get back to it.